Hello, today we will present our film review on The Intouchables. This presentation is prepared by Ronald, Yang Wu, Qin Huren, and myself, Hinako Taniguchi. The Intouchable is a French film released in 2011 and it is based on a true story. The film became very popular among the world and is known for showing both humor and serious social issues. It tells the story of an unexpected relationship between two people from very different backgrounds. One of the main characters is Philip, a wealthy and educated white man who cannot move his body by himself after an accident. The other main character is Dries, a young black man from a lower social class with an immigrant background, who is hired as Philip's caregiver. Because of their different backgrounds, their relationship involves many cultural and social differences. So this film is suitable for analyzing intercultural communication. It is not only about nationality, it also includes differences in social class, values, life experiences, and communication styles. In this film, we can clearly see how these differences influence the way the characters communicate with each other. At the beginning of the film, communication between Philip and Dries is uncomfortable because Philip prefers more formal and polite way of communication, while Dries speaks casually and uses humor even in serious situations. So these differences sometimes cause misunderstanding. However, instead of avoiding each other because of prejudice, they continue interacting and slowly adjust to each other. In our presentation, we analyze this relationship critically using theories and argument style based on our intercultural communication course. So let's move on next part.
So this is the first argument about stereotypes. According to Coleman King and Turner 2022, stereotypes are formed based on perceived characteristics such as appearance or background, while prejudice involves negative attitudes towards individuals or groups. For example, which is shown beside these two pictures that the police pointed a gun at Dries in the opening scene of Intouchable. When Dries drive at a high speed with Philippe in the passenger seat, the police do not treat Dries as an individual who made mistakes, but they directly judge him based on the appearance, race, and behavior. This scene clearly illustrates prejudice, as the police assume Dries is dangerous and criminal because of his attitude and behavior when driving a car at a high speed. Judging him solely on his social based on the social identity. At the same time, Felipe physical disability leads the police to view him as a vulnerable. So the next one will be the second argument.
So this is the argument two that we like to talk about. So this scene takes place in Drill's aunt's apartment. At first, the space represents family and temporary belonging for Dress. However, the apartment is small, crowded, and tense, which already um, increase the emotionally tense. And during the night, an argument breaks out between Driss and his aunt, and eventually she forced him to leave the apartment. And to these scenes, we can know that from an intercultural communication perspective, this moment can be understood as a conflict within a culture space. According to Eisen in 2012, culture includes human activities and substance of meanings, which just means that it also includes the framework that gives meanings and value to those activities. And building on these ideas, Furthers and Yellowher describes culture space as a combination of people, physical environment, social relationships, and cultural identities. In these scenes, the aunt apartment is not just a physical location. It is a cultural space shaped by family expectations, moral responsibilities, and social norms. When Driss is expelled, it shows that the space is no longer accepts his identity or behavior. His aunt believes that Driss's lifestyles and actions may negatively influence the children living there, so she decided to remove him from the environment. We can also know that according to the lecture slides from the week 9, culture space strongly influence how we see ourselves and how others define us. In this case, the family home become a space that regulates belongings. Only Driss no longer fits the expectation of that space, he is excluded. After being kicked out, Driss returns to his neighborhood and reconnects with his friends. This shift highlights how different culture space shaped identity differently. While the family home demands responsibilities and conformity, his neighborhood offers familiarities and acceptance, even if it lacks stabilities. So in conclusion, these scenes illustrate how culture space are not neutral. They actively shape behaviors, belongings, and identities. Andres' experience shows how exclusions from one space can push an individual back into another. So this is the argument too.
The scene where Jazz gets a job offer is the moment his journey of cultural adaptation begins. He stepped out of his familiar neighborhood and into a wealthy world. It's not just a new job, it's a clash of society, economy, cultures. He has to adjust everything: how he acts, how he talks, and even how he sees himself. This is where cultural adaptation theory helps us understand his experience. Who connect adaptation directly to self-concept. It's about how entering a new culture forces you to confront and reshape your own identity. This does not fit in at first. His initial behavior is a mismatch, but is that the point? Adaptation is not instant. We see him start to adjust his communication and attitude, piece by piece, to function in this new setting. Who explains that with time and effort, individuals can reach an adaptation stage. They don't just cope, they become comfortable and learn to move between cultures, and just gradually gain confidence, build a real connection with Philip, and find his own place with his unfamiliar world. So these things show us that cultural adaptation is far more than changing your address. It's a transformative process. This about reshaping who you are across socio-economic lines, some intercultural experience. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Dee. This is argument 4 that I'd like to share. The sense when Philip meets his friend at a restaurant and his friend shows concern about Darius working as Philip's assistant. This concern is mainly based on Darius' appearance, race, and ethnic background rather than his actual abilities. From an intercultural communication perspective, this then reflect the key issue of the identity, stereotyping, and prejudice, which related to the week 6 lecture on identity. According to Angeli and document 2005. Projectiles can function as a mechanism that maintains status and role difference between social groups. In this case, Philip's friend believes that having Dirac as an assistant threatens Philip's social status. This reaction shows how social identity and the cultural background influence the judgment because Dirac and Philip come from very different social environments. Philip's friend associate Dirac with low status and the risk, even without direct personal experience. In addition, Fisk and Newberger 1990 explained that people tend to categorize others when they received enough social cues, such as race, age, or appearance. In this case, Philip's friend quickly placed Direx into a social category based on these cues, which lead to stereotyping and projected assumption. All these things show how stereotypes and projected shape interpersonal interaction and reinforce social boundaries in intercultural communication. Is that all?
Now I talk about argument 5, which is about intercultural relationship building. This argument focuses on how Trace and Free build a relationship even though they come from really different backgrounds. The movie shows that communication and acceptance are very important in building this relationship. In the film, Philip is wealthy, upper class, and disabled, where Trace comes from immigrant and working class background. They live very different lives, but they do many activities together, such as paragliding, celebrating birthdays, and dancing. These shared activities help them understand each other better. From an intercultural communication perspective, culture affects how people communicate. Trace is very open and direct, while Phillips is more quiet and careful. Through open communication and shared experience, they reduce misunderstanding and slowly build trust. According to Grant Fixer, culture is influence how people interact with others. Also, Asman says that intercultural communication can help people build closer relationships. This can be seen in the film because Trace and Flip become closer by talking honestly and showing feelings. This argument is important because intercultural communication is a two-way process. Dress and Flip do not change who they are, but they accept their difference. Through the interaction, their difference becomes strength instead of problem.
So this is the summary for The Intouchable for our chosen film. So both character between Dries and Felipe hold strong stereotypes about each other. These assumptions shape their early interaction and relationship, which lead to moments where they were a misunderstanding and tension. The film highlights of culture shock and culture adaptation as a two-way process. Through their growing friendship, the film demonstrates how long-term interpersonal interaction can challenge stereotypes and promote mutual understanding, offer valuable insights into intercultural communication in modern multicultural societies. Thank you.